Dave Curd, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me, Ben.
Absolutely. Where are you right now?
I am in super hot Madison, Wisconsin.
It's the hottest, most wonderful place on earth. There was an offer originally to maybe have you drive out to Game Informer, which is based here in Minneapolis, which was very exciting for me. It's so amazing to me that we are surprisingly close to where so much PUBG development is happening out there.
The Midwest is a hot spot. We got secret stuff happening out here. This is a good place to be. You've got the right idea.
Yeah. You said the Midwest. I mean, realistically, it's like Madison's a hot spot and Chicago's fine.
No comment.
How long have you been working in Madison then in the game industry?
I've been in the game industry 12 years. I've been at PUBG for just over 2 years.
Okay. And you're at Raven before that?
Yeah. I did some time at Raven working on the Call of Duty franchise.
Oh, how do you look back on those days?
Amazing. Like, I learned a lot, met a lot of great developers, was pushed really hard, got to learn a lot of cool stuff. So, yeah, it was a great experience.
I think we just did a cover story not too long ago on Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, and so we kind of went into the history books a little bit and talked about Marvel Ultimate Alliance's 1's development. We had some folks from Raven, and the big theme of the interview, I think, was just bringing up that like Raven could probably deserves some more attention. It's a little bit frustrating that Activision will never put them fully in the spotlight, at least up to this point. And it's like, God, there's so many talented developers there. I'd imagine you saw it from the inside working their asses off. Is it frustrating, do you think, that Raven doesn't get more love?
I don't know where they're at now, but I really loved the time I had with them. They were all super, super nice.
Yeah. What do you think was the biggest takeaway after spending so much time working on, what do we got, like Modern Warfare 3, Ghost, Blops 2, stuff like that?
Gameplay first. That's all of my time in video games has been in support of the player. And that's something that we look at really hard at PUBG is all the artistic bells and whistles don't mean a thing if FPS isn't fun, if the game isn't performant. So yeah, that's my whole career has been like, how do we make sure it's a fun game?
Yeah. What is your title? Is it just art director for PUBG at this point?
Yeah, so I'm world art director. So what that means is mostly it's conversations. I get to draw sometimes. I get to do a little set dress sometimes, but primarily I'm having conversations with art, design, programming, making sure the maps are all heading in a good direction. Everything's cohesive. Everything's cool. Yeah.
When you walk around the streets of Madison, are you hailed like a hero celebrity over there for working on PUBG?
Absolutely.
Do you get recognized? Do people ask you where you work and they're like, oh, gee, PUBG, I know that? Or what's like the most common refrain from people?
You're going to hear this from every developer you interview. We always have like the swag. We always have like the little jacket that says PUBG, and people will kind of call you by your name, which is PUBG. So, I'm going to be like in line for pizza and hear, hey, PUBG. And okay, will this be a good or bad interaction? And typically everybody's been great.
Does it say like PUBG dev team though, or do they just think you're a fan?
Well, I think I look too old to like people see me and they're like, yeah, that guy, he's doing something. He can't just love video games, but I love video games. So I hate to be profiled like that.
Yeah. Do you ever get, frequently asked questions about your job from random people on the street?
I hear a lot of unsolicited video game ideas.
Oh, any good ones?
Yeah, I mean, I'm making them all, and any idea people tell me goes right into the game. Like,
Jesus Christ,
they've given it up, so I'm putting it in that game.
Smart move overall legally, I think. So okay, redesigning the core map Erangel for PUBG. You want to just walk me through the process? How does this work? What direction are you given? How do you implement it? Walk me through the story here.
Well, Ben, the first thing is you get really scary news of, hey, we're going to give a visual update to Erangel. It's kind of the most iconic map. It's the map everyone thinks about when they think PUBG. So, first you vomit, for about 30, 40 minutes. And when you've cleaned yourself up, you think, okay, how do we make sure it's fresh but familiar, it's fun, it's really the first thing I did was I talked to Tessic Jing, who's our executive producer, and, because he was art director back when they made it. And I just wanted to hear from, like, what were his intentions, what were his inspirations, and, talk to everybody else at the company because, we're really flat. We all want to make sure we hear each other. And then just start building a world. You start with reference, you start with research, you start with gameplay intentions, what do we want to improve? What do we want to polish? What do we want to totally remake?
How do they see it, that original art team? Do they look back at that map and be like, boy, that was coming in hot? Or do they see it as a masterpiece that should barely be touched?
No, that map came together very fast. We released in early access. So it was, I think, kind of an incredible accomplishment for the short dev time. But, every map we improve both in technology and art. So we were always looking back knowing that's a cool map, but we have to kind of level it up and get it with parity with our other maps.
Sure. Well, here's an impossible question. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with the original PUBG map?
Well, there's art and there's design.
Uh-huh.
So from the design issues, all of our design team is really great at looking at the data. So we look at heat maps and we see what are the areas of the map that should get some more gameplay, but don't quite. It's not getting the love we think it deserves. Also, from a design perspective, we've introduced the ledge grab feature. So how do we show that off? How do we make traversal fun? So that's kind of on the design side. It's pretty easy to see like, hey, Milta Power is kind of an iconic location, but hardly anybody was playing it in the numbers we would expect. So we know right away, let's totally redo that area, right?
Well, hang on. I got to stop you there. Okay, so redo an area. Is the overall idea just to put more loot there and that'll gravitate players towards there more? Or is the expectation like, hey, if we make the art look really pretty, players will start dropping here again?
Oh, neither. Like, loot will certainly drive players, but ultimately, if the layouts aren't fun, there's other places in our map to get loot. So, and art, doesn't really move the needle. I love making art. We want players to feel a nice, cohesive, beautiful experience, but it's always design first. So we went to areas that weren't getting a lot of love and revisited the layouts, just the core design, the core engagement distances, the core flow. So to entice players to check it out.
Did you?
And Ben, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, were you on the drastic end of the spectrum, or were you on the minimalist end of the spectrum for what you wanted to do personally for kind of redesigning these things?
Well, I think for areas that are classic, like Pachinki or school, you really don't have to change a thing other than, removing clutter where things were too visually busy to identify targets, or maybe there's props that we might call ankle biters, right? Like you're walking through a hallway and, boom, like, oh, like this little suitcase stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of just sweeping the floors and getting things to flow a little bit nicer. On the other end of the spectrum, with a map, with an area like Milta Power, it's like, yeah, people aren't playing here, so we can go nuts. Let's just make it a cool area with a new flow and new things to explore. And let's get, if players weren't going there before, let's get them excited to check it out now.
Do you worry at all about, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the PUBG community, very passionate. Do you worry at all about changing things too much? And it's like, okay, are we going to have to create a whole separate playlist now where people can technically play the original map a little bit, WoW vanilla style or something?
That's funny. Yeah, it's good to have a passionate base, right? And you can't make something that people love without a few people hating it. That's just, if you shoot down the middle, you don't make anything interesting. So I imagine a couple of players will say, hey, Milta Power was like my favorite location and you guys have ruined my life. And I sincerely apologize, but I'm hoping for the overwhelming majority of players, they're excited to see the meta get refreshed. If the map stayed the same for 100 years, I don't think it would be a very exciting gameplay experience.
Yeah. Okay, so you had no involvement in the creation of the original map. You came in like 2 years ago and just got the ball rolling for all other maps. Is that the general idea?
Yeah, I showed up in Madison. There was already a tiny team here founded by Tessic Chang and Sean Wiederhoft, and they were kicking off Miramar. So I was like, this sounds good. They already have a super fun game, and let's make it look pretty. Like it's been a super fun ride. So yeah, I started on Miramar and have touched everything since then.
Awesome. Is there a lot of former Raven folks at the studio?
We've got a good spectrum. We've got people from all over.
Yeah. How big is the team over there these days?
We've got a bunch. I don't know if I'm allowed to give specifics, but we've got an office crawling with creepy creatives here working their tails off.
Okay, creepy crawlies is the number of developers over there. Is it like the biggest development chunk for PUBG overall at this point, or is Korea still the mothership here?
So WeWork is kind of one global team. So we have artists and programmers here, and we have a large, huge team in Korea, and we all work together on the same stuff. So I'm flying between here and Seoul a lot. So yeah, Korea still does a lot of development. They are the mothership.
Yeah. What's been your favorite part of visiting Korea?
it is the weirdly safest city I've ever been to, bar none. Like, we have a lot of late nights. You know, when I go to Korea, I'm like, I'm going to work like crazy to make the trip worth it. So I'll get out of the office at like 1 or 2 in the morning, and there's just like cute little old ladies like carrying their groceries home. And like, it's coming from the States, it's kind of shocking how clean and safe Seoul is.
Yeah, it's got to be wild. And I had a layover in South Korea a couple months ago, and just being in that airport, it was amazing to see all the PUBG merchandise, where it's like, okay, there's some sort of tie-in with some sort of cutesy stuffed animals where they all have frying pans now and stuff like that. It's like, it's really, it's nice that it's a cultural touchstone over there. I think it's nice to have some cultural pride for PUBG.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest. I'm sure someone on the internet can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it's South Korea's largest game, and you know, it has a massive global footprint. And for me, it's been humbling working on something. You know, most of my career has been in kind of straight Western development. So to work on a game now that so many players around the world care about, it has been really incredible to see all those different perspectives and get all that different kinds of feedback.
Yeah. So your direction was go back, remaster the map, basically. Are you using the term remaster?
Well, you know, I think visual update, because, you know, like on top of the design stuff we talked about earlier, every building model has been updated, every material redone, all the props have been touched, all new terrain, all new sky. So it's, you know, visually, it's insanely overhauled. If you've had a chance to check it out today or in the test server, it's a very different experience than what we were playing the last 2 years.
Interesting. So how do you get attention for a season 4? I feel like that's the core of it, right? I imagine you're not on the marketing team directly, but what conversations does the team have about, like, how do we get some more eyeballs on PUBG? Because season 2, season 1, all those things are exciting, and then at a certain point, it's like, okay, we need an impactful thing for every season. Can you just shed any light on what those discussions are like for how to get more eyeballs on the game?
You know, I think that's a great question, but I don't think it's about getting eyeballs on the game. I think it's really about just continuing to make the game better. You know, like, if we keep improving the experience, if we keep refreshing, if we keep adding, you know, things like ledge grab or jerry can. Now we've got, you know, in this season, we're introducing the turntable and the car radio. We're just always making the game better. And that's naturally going to make players come check out what's going on. You know, we release Aftermath. We have new missions, of course, new co-op missions, which is new, the ability to trade missions if you find one you don't like, and just that progression tree to unlock cool cosmetics. I think there's just a lot of players that are like always excited to see what kind of new pants they can find.
Yeah. So overall, for, like, you know, this wave, the kind of season 4 wave of development, do you have a favorite moment, favorite detail, favorite working day where, like, oh, this was the most fun part of this?
It's always launch day. It's always watching the streamers enjoy it. It's kind of checking Twitter. It's seeing how the people receive it, because, you know, you never look too far in the future. You just kind of focus in the moment. In terms of, like, development, really just seeing the collaboration between North America and Korea. You know, it's almost like we're working on the game 24/7 because of the time zones. You know, so we're checking in art. They're immediately checking it out. We're constantly churning. We're constantly talking. It's just been super fun to work in this way. It's, like, really exciting because you can always kind of check your phone day or night and see, like, a new, like, cool thing to look at.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the season 4 trailer, where it seems like it's starting to introduce some lore. How does that affect your job?
It's good. It's good. We're all storytellers. We all want to make compelling experiences. And and we're all big fans in show, don't tell, right? So we love making content, whether it's a trailer or whether it's the moment-to-moment gameplay in the map, and letting kind of players discover it, and players jump on YouTube or Twitch and talk about, you know, what they've discovered and what they think it means.
Okay, so you're including some kind of lore, Easter eggs, and details in the new version of the map. Like, statues have been changed. Is there a lore Bible that you're working off of to kind of plant those little Easter eggs?
I'm going to say show, don't tell. Like, players get in there and unlock the secrets.
The catch with podcasting, though, Dave, is it's kind of tell, don't show. That's the twist.
Oh, no. Okay, can I speak directly to the people?
Please.
Then? I need you to minimize your window and launch PUBG and get the latest update.
Okay, no, I'm not asking, you don't have to, like, divulge the secrets of this. I'm just wondering, you know, development wise, is it literally like, do you get a lore Bible without revealing what that Bible is that says, here are the major themes we're working with. Any way the art team can kind of trickle in these details would be great.
Well, as we discussed, Ben, just off camera, there is a person with a frying pan kind of ready to ice me. So I would love to help you, but I don't want a head injury.
Okay.
I think this is very unfair.
Just, do you know, is there a lore Bible for PUBG?
I can't. He's
You
right
can't
over
say
me.
if there's a Bible? But there has to
Dang
be.
it. You'll never hit gold with me, Ben. You'll never hit gold.
That's insane. Okay, so what about Mr. Man in the trailer where he's like, welcome to my battlegrounds? Is it fair to say that man canonically is called Player Unknown?
I'm not at liberty to say. We put it out there so that the people can discuss. Hey, let me tell you, is
Please.
it more fun to watch a David Lynch film or read a script? And his scripts are incredible.
Look, I completely agree. That's why I'm not asking for the details and for you to reveal any of the lore details. I just want you to confirm that, yes, there is a lore Bible without any details in there. I'm talking about the cover of the book, not the contents.
You'll never get that information from me, Ben. Absolutely.
Why? That's insane. Why would I confirm that?
You'll never confirm it. I cannot confirm or deny it.
Okay, but fair to say there are now Easter eggs on the map that people will have a fun time trying to uncover.
Oh, absolutely. Play the game. There's cool shit in there. Absolutely.
Okay, all right, there we go. Cool in game. Got it. Can you talk about, since you were there since Miramar, can you talk about just the design philosophy for the maps overall for PUBG? What do you think are like the big do's and don'ts for PUBG maps?
At the high level, it's do you make good, don't make bad. But in terms of getting specific, every map has to have a story in terms of user experience, right? So Miramar was kind of very high tension. We had a lot of cavernous cities, a lot of open windows, a lot of barren terrain. So you always felt like people were watching you. We made the terrain pretty rocky and savage so that when you're kind of on your vehicles, it's tough to get around. So that was kind of the intention there. With Sandhawk, we definitely wanted something really fun, really casual, really exciting. So there was like fast circles, lots of SMGs, a lot of super basic structures, 1 and 2 story. We wanted to keep players moving. Vikendi, really kind of best of both worlds, kind of somewhere in the middle. It's a little bit more deliberate, but we introduced footsteps for like footprint tracking for cat and mouse gameplay. And now with the remaster, or the visual update rather, it's fresh but familiar, meaning like Erangel played great, it's still popular, it still has a really high pick rate, but how can we like tweak it to make fans excited to get back in there and try it?
Yeah. Any other just broad themes? Do you have like pillars of design? Like every map needs to have, I don't know. So I guess where I'm going with this, let me just spell it out, is on the Black Ops 4 cover story trip we went on, a series you know well, we're talking about the design of the Blackout map. They had an interesting philosophy there at Treyarch where they're like, we realized that designing a Battle Royale map is very difficult. They rebooted it several times, right? And they're like, the core that we came up with is we figured out that we want all the action to happen on an X. So conceptually, they had like an X overlay on the map, and they realized that in the downtime areas in between where those lines are, that's where it's going to be more loose, and you can take your time and explore a little bit more. But all the hot spots, they want to be on an X, and that was the perfect ratio. Do you have any guiding philosophy like that? Have you ever considered that basic idea of like, okay, there's certain distinct lines that we want to have as the hot spots?
Oh, absolutely. We always have philosophies in terms of like we know what the hot drops and the hot spots are going to be before the map comes out. So we know we are very intentionally placing our towns in our unique locations, our schools, our resorts. Those are all laid out in relation to with things like plane paths considered, right? And then we have optimal distances between towns and unique areas. We have optimal distances for small house sets and compounds and even the tiny shacks. And then the other thing that we're speaking of, which is kind of the peaks and valleys, the rhythm of like intense versus downtime, that's also controlled by obviously the circle and the loot. So, that's something we work very closely with design. So from a layout point of view, we understand where things need to go for kind of optimal fun. And then design works with us on loot placement, circle speed, circle damage. That's stuff that's always kind of a living conversation until the map goes live. And then, as you've seen, it's an evergreen game, so these loot and circle speeds and circle damages can be updated over time to kind of keep the players engaged.
Yeah. What is the first step of designing a map? Is it drawing on a napkin? Are you using Media Molecule's dreams to lay something out? Like, what is the roughest, earliest version of a map in your mind?
The earliest version of the map is the design intention conversation, where we figure out what do we want players to feel. Like, if they've won or if they've lost, what is their basic gameplay story? And once you have that skeleton of, like I said, maybe high tension or fast and loose, once you have a frame of what you want the players to feel, it's right into scribbling in Photoshop of like, oh, layouts could be like this, island shapes could be like that. We have artists and designers looking at reference of like, where should we put the map? And then we're already thinking about building layouts, like what kind of simple building blockouts can we create to facilitate the design intention?
Yeah. Do you guys are you working off any backlog of Brendan Green ideas at this point for future maps? Or is it like he's off doing his own thing, it's completely separate, and you are just in no man's land now creating new stuff?
Tessik Cheng runs the show. He is an incredibly smart dude. Like I said, when I first started working for him, he was art director, and now he is kind of really helping guide the ship. And we all work together on, what we think the fans want, what we're reading, because we're always aware of what our players are into. And we're on our own.
So he's the one that's volleying out there like, okay, let's go with like a Mediterranean vibe for this one, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's all conversations. I mean, that's like what's really unusual about PUBG compared to a lot of kind of traditional Western development is it's super duper flat. So a good idea can come from anywhere. We all kind of consider it and have conversations. And Tessik's the guy, like, love him, but he's making sure all of our voices are heard and trying to deliver the best experience for our fans.
Yeah. Okay, not talking about new Easter eggs, but do you have a favorite detail in any of the maps that you've designed from the past? Like just a favorite bit of text you've included there, or just something very personal that you've slipped into a map?
It's not too secret, but I really enjoyed set dressing in Sandhawk, the commercial building full of the spooky mannequins.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was like day one on Twitch. We're getting Choco Taco, like getting jump scared, from the man. So we do. And there's if when you play today, when you play the visual update, we've got these new chubby, creepy little baby dolls kind of scattered around the map, which when you're hearing the footsteps and someone's turned on the turntable, so there's like loud Russian music playing, and you like turn that corner, there's like this fat little monster baby.
Uh-huh.
In playtest, we've seen people become very upset.
Interesting. And the baby is modeled after Mr. Player Unknown, lore-wise, when he was a baby on the island. Is that correct?
No, they were using my baby photos.
Oh,
actually.
okay. Congratulations.
The Korean artists were looking for like fattest baby, and I was like, hey, I got your reference. I got to just get home.
Oh, that's sweet. Anything else you want to share? I'm curious, is it your favorite moment at the studio overall so far? It's got to be a wild ride for these 2 years.
It's been really intense. The favorite moments are always launch day. Like the whole studio takes a breath. We open Twitch, we watch streams, we read magazines, read journalists, and get the response, and it's kind of like all worth it. Like this is why we do it. We do it to make people happy. This is a global game. It's got a huge reach, and it's just from the heart, dude. It feels so good when it lands and people enjoy the experience.
Yeah, for sure. Last question I have for you is, when was the last time you went to the Wisconsin Dells?
Oh, I went to the casino up in the Dells a couple of years ago on a party bus for a birthday. Ooh. And I won $1,400.
Holy God! Did you then go to the Dells and actually spend it on dumb kitschy stuff?
Yeah. It then went all into like knickknacks. Just my whole fortune was now on my tables at home. Tchotchkes.
I've been raving about the Dells too much lately, but I just was there the last weekend. The best. One of my favorite places on earth. It's the best underrepresented place for just a good-ass vacation. You got the water parks. You have 1,000 activities. Everything's cheap. Parking's great. What more do you want?
I think we should get you in contact with the Dells Chamber of Commerce and like We should put together an ad like PUBG, Dell's, Game Informer. Like, let's make it happen. Dude.
Hang on. They have a bunch of crappy like laser tag and paintball there. You could have an officially licensed PUBG attraction at the Wisconsin Dells. If you need someone to write that attraction for you or design it, I could not be more into something.
Well, Ben, like we discussed with my unsolicited game ideas, I will actually directly be taking your idea to the Chamber of Commerce. Like this is more of a solo venture.
Great.
Unfortunately.
And if you could nail it on the door, I'd really appreciate it because it's going to be thorough.
It's going to be awesome.
Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
Okay, good to hear. Well, hey, thank you so much, Dave. Craig, really appreciate your time, man.
Thank you so much for your time, Ben. Appreciate it.
That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.